I was 64 when my nephew looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're just an extra mouth to feed." Not in a fight, not in anger. He said it like he was commenting on the weather, like my existence had become inconvenient. And the worst part? My sister didn't say a word to correct him. I'm Margaret Harlan. I've lived on our family farm my whole life, nearly 7 decades of soil under my nails, calluses on my hands, and memories stitched into the fields like patches on a quilt. My father built this land with his bare hands, and when he passed, I stayed behind to take care of it. While my siblings married, moved to the city, chased careers and comforts, I stayed, loyal, present, working from dawn till dusk to preserve what he left us. For years, I kept the place running, paid off the final mortgage, repaired the barn roof twice, and when my brother died, his widow and their son, my nephew Dean, moved back in. I didn't complain. Family is family, right? At first, it felt nice not being alone anymore. We'd have dinner together. They'd help me here and there, though not as often as they promised. Dean was a grown man in his 30s, but he acted like lifting hay bales was beneath him. His mother, Colleen, busied herself with rearranging my pantry and telling everyone on Facebook she was back to her roots. But as time passed, I started noticing the shift. The dinner table got quieter. They'd make grocery lists without asking me what I needed. I'd find mail unopened, utility bills ignored, because it was my farm, my responsibility. But they still slept under its roof, still used the water, the power, the food. It came to a head one rainy afternoon when I asked Dean to help me move a broken fence post. He didn't even look up from his phone, just said, "You know, Aunt Margie, you're just an extra mouth to feed at this point. Maybe it's time to consider a retirement home." A retirement home. I felt the blood drain from my face. 64 isn't young, but I wasn't some feeble old woman needing hand-holding. I ran this place. I kept it alive. And now, suddenly, I was a burden? I turned to Colleen, hoping, praying she'd say something, anything. She just shrugged and said, "He's not wrong, Margaret. You've done your part. Maybe it's time to step aside." Step aside from what? The life I built? The land I kept alive while they were living comfortably elsewhere? That night, I sat at the old oak desk in my father's study, opened the drawer that still smelled faintly of his pipe tobacco, and there it was, the deed to the farm. My name, sole ownership, signed by my father himself when he handed it to me after Mom passed. They didn't even know. They thought I was just some old relic they had to tolerate until I faded away. But I held the land. I held everything. And in that moment, I made a decision. Not out of spite, out of clarity. They wanted me gone? Then I'd leave. But I'd take everything with me. I didn't say anything the next morning. I fried eggs, but only 2. Poured coffee, but only for myself. Dean came downstairs, rubbing his eyes, muttering something about there being no almond milk. Colleen asked why I hadn't picked up the organic cereal she liked. I nodded politely, made no excuses, and smiled to myself, because now I was listening to their rhythms, watching, calculating. I started keeping notes, quiet ones. What time they left the house, how often they skipped helping with chores, the way Colleen borrowed cash from the jar in the pantry, how Dean made phone calls in the barn like it was his personal office, always whispering, always smirking. I also started meeting with people, quietly. First, Mr. Rourke down at the county clerk's office. He hadn't seen me in years, but he remembered Dad well. When I showed him the deed, he nodded and said, "Clear as day, Margaret. This land is yours alone. Nobody else's name on it." Second, I called an old friend of my father's, Thomas Green. He was a retired broker who once helped Dad secure farm equipment grants. Now, in his 70s, he still kept a foot in the real estate world. I asked him to meet me in town under the pretense of catching up. "Thinking of selling?" he asked, half joking. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Thinking of leaving them with nothing." He blinked, then chuckled. Well, I always knew you had steel in your spine, Margaret. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was about reclaiming something they'd taken from me quietly. My dignity. Over the next few weeks, I gathered everything I'd need. Legal records, utility histories, tax receipts, and I made calls to interested buyers who didn't need to know just yet that the house came with guests who didn't own a square inch of it. One evening, Dean walked into the kitchen, smelling like cheap cologne and attitude. "Hey, so, me and a buddy were thinking of converting the barn into a recording studio. You know, bring in some modern income." He said it like he owned the place. I sipped my tea. "Interesting idea, but that barn's nearly 100 years old, structurally fragile." He rolled his eyes. "Yeah, well, everything around here is fragile." That night, I packed one suitcase. Just one. My old red Samsonite from a cruise I never got to take. I didn't cry, I didn't write a note. I just left the house at sunrise, drove into town, and signed the closing papers. Farm, land, house, all sold. Cash buyers, quick turnover, no strings. The deed transferred, the check wired. And when I returned that evening for the last time, I parked up the road and looked at my family's farm from a distance, still standing, still proud, but no longer theirs. Tomorrow, the new owners would arrive, and Dean and Colleen, they'd get the notice taped to the front door. 30 days to vacate, no extensions, no discussions. They wanted me gone? Well, I was gone, but I didn't leave empty-handed. The next morning, I drove past the farm slowly. It looked the same. Sunlight spilling over the roof, the windmill creaking in the breeze, Dean's muddy truck parked sideways like always. But something had shifted, not in the land, in me. I pulled into the diner on Main Street, sat by the window with a biscuit and black coffee and waited. At 9:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Dean. 4 missed calls. Then, Colleen. "What is this? Why is there a paper taped to the front door?" I didn't reply. Instead, I walked home. Not to the farm, but to a little cottage I had leased under my name 3 towns over. Quiet, sturdy, with a garden I didn't have to share. It wasn't big, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I had peace. That evening, Dean showed up at my door. Not knocking, pounding. I opened it slowly. Calm, the same way he used to walk past me when I asked for help with chores. "You sold it?" he barked, as if he couldn't even form the sentence. "You sold the farm?" I looked at him. Really looked. No remorse, no understanding, just disbelief that the woman he'd called extra had taken the one thing he thought he was entitled to. "You never asked whose name was on the deed," I said softly. Colleen was standing behind him, arms folded, mascara smudged. "We live there, Margaret. You can't just kick us out like we're squatters." I smiled. "I didn't kick anyone out. The new owners did." Dean's face reddened. "We made plans. I told people that barn was mine." "Plans built on what you didn't own," I replied. "On someone you didn't respect. You wanted me gone, remember? That's what you said. An extra mouth." His mouth opened, then closed. "Do you even understand what you've done?" Colleen hissed. "You blindsided your family." I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, and faced them on the porch. For years, I kept the lights on, paid the bills, fixed the roof. You two just lived there, like I was the maid who came with the property. I was never the burden, Colleen. I was the foundation. You just refused to see it. Dean's fists clenched. "You think this makes you look powerful. Petty, maybe. Cruel." I nodded. "You're right. It does look like power, because it is. I took back what was mine." Then I handed him a manila envelope. Inside, a copy of the deed, signed and notarized, a list of all the utility payments I'd made over the last 3 years, and a photo of Dad, standing beside me, the day he handed me that same deed. They didn't say a word. As I walked back inside, I said one final thing, without turning around. "Next time you call someone an extra mouth to feed, make sure they don't own the land you're standing on." And I closed the door, softly, like a chapter ending. It's strange. The silence that follows when you finally let go of something that's been heavy for so long. Not just the land, not just the people, but the weight of being invisible. For years, I thought staying meant loyalty. I thought biting my tongue and accepting their cold stares was what good family did. But loyalty without respect? That's not family. That's servitude, dressed in tradition. The first morning in my new cottage, I sat on the porch with my coffee and listened, not to someone barking orders or to Dean's late-night arguments on the phone or Colleen dragging furniture at midnight. I listened to birds, to wind, to my own breath, and for the first time in years, it wasn't caught in my throat. A week later, the official move-out deadline passed. I didn't go check, I didn't call. But the new owner, Miranda, a young woman who planned to turn the land into a working farm-to-table school, sent me a text. They're gone. Place is a mess, but nothing we can't fix. Thank you again for trusting me. I stared at her message for a long while. She didn't say, thanks for selling. She said, thanks for trusting. It mattered. That same afternoon, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a note in Dean's handwriting. You were right. I didn't see it. Any of it. You didn't deserve what we said. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know. I remember how you used to make cinnamon bread when I was little. And I remember you were always there, even when no one else was. I hope this new place gives you peace. You earned it. No signature, no phone number, just folded regret sealed in an apology. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But sometimes, the most powerful emotion isn't sadness. It's relief. I placed the letter in the drawer of my kitchen hutch, next to a candle and a photograph of my father. I imagined him nodding, smiling in that quiet way he used to when I made the right decision, but didn't need the praise. Later that evening, I baked. Not cinnamon bread, but peach cobbler, the windows open, the smell of brown sugar and butter filling every corner of this new home. My home. I set the pie on the counter and made 2 plates, one for me, one for no one in particular, because I didn't feel alone, not anymore. I felt full, and for the first time in a long, long time. I wasn't feeding anyone who thought I didn't matter. Here is section 5. The one visit I didn't expect. 2 weeks after everything settled, I heard a knock at my door. Not pounding, not angry, just gentle, hesitant. I looked through the curtain and saw a woman standing on my porch in a green coat with her hands clutched around her purse. It took me a second to recognize her. Time hadn't been kind, or maybe it had just been honest, but I knew that posture. Colleen. I opened the door slowly. She didn't speak at first, just looked at me like she was waiting to be hit with something. Maybe words, maybe a slammed door. I won't stay long, she said. I had to say something. I nodded but didn't step aside. I wasn't ready to let her in, not yet. She glanced down at her shoes, then back up. You were kind to us, and we treated you like a burden. I didn't see it then. I see it now. The wind rustled through the porch railing. I stayed quiet. She shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Dean's staying with a friend. He's looking for work. I'm living with my sister in a guest room. We lost everything, and maybe we deserved that. But you deserved better. I was too proud to admit that while we were living under your roof. Still, I said nothing, because sometimes silence speaks louder than forgiveness. She pulled something from her bag, a photo, an old one. It was me and Dean when he was about 7. He had his arm around my neck, missing his 2 front teeth. I was kneeling in front of a wheelbarrow, flour on my apron, smiling so wide you could almost hear the laugh frozen in that image. I found this when we packed up, she said. He kept it in a drawer. For a moment, my throat tightened. That version of Dean, the little boy who begged me for one more story before bed, he felt like a ghost now. She offered the photo. I took it without a word. I don't expect anything from you, she whispered. Just, I hope you're okay. I really do. And then she turned and left. I didn't call her back, didn't ask her to stay for coffee. But I stood on the porch until her car disappeared over the hill. I went back inside, photo in hand, and set it gently beside the others on my dresser. The dresser I bought with my own money, in the house I chose. After the life I took back. Later that night, I lit a fire and sat in front of it with a book I hadn't had time to finish in years. Not once did I check the time. Not once did I wonder what someone else needed from me. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't needed. And strangely, it didn't hurt. It healed. That's the thing about people who call you an extra mouth to feed. They forget something crucial. You're the one who taught them how to eat in the first place. I still wake up early. Old habits don't die just because the view changes. But instead of gathering eggs or prepping to fix a fence, I take my coffee to the garden. My garden. The one I planted myself behind the cottage. Rows of wildflowers, herbs, and a stubborn little fig tree that hasn't bloomed yet, but I believe it will, in time. Things that grow slowly tend to last the longest. People sometimes ask me if I regret it. Selling the farm, cutting ties. And here's the honest truth. No. Not for a single second. Because for too long, I lived as if I owed the world more than I owed myself. I poured love into soil and family alike, hoping it would bloom back. But not everything you plant grows. Sometimes, the people you water the most are the ones who let you wither first. I gave them chances, grace, shelter, food, history. And when they told me I was just an extra mouth, I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I listened. And then I walked away with the deed, yes. But more importantly, with my voice. I recently started volunteering at a local women's shelter, teaching practical skills, gardening, budgeting, a bit of carpentry. Last week, one of the women, Angela, asked me what I used to do for a living. I laughed. I used to hold up a house that didn't see me. She didn't laugh. She just nodded like she knew exactly what I meant. That night, I wrote something down in my journal. Something I think every woman who's ever been called too much or not enough should remember. You are not a burden. You are the builder. And builders never beg for space. They make it. I may be 64. I may have gray in my hair and knees that ache when it rains. But I have peace. And that's worth more than any field, barn, or blood relation who only saw my hands, not my heart. If my nephew ever does come back, not for money, but maybe with a different soul, I won't slam the door, but I won't open it all the way either. Some lessons need to breathe in silence. And if Colleen ever drives past this road again, I hope she sees the fig tree in bloom. I hope it reminds her that women like me don't disappear. We transform. We don't burn bridges. We build gates. And we decide who walks through them.